when the martial process between you and a student is completed?
Martial evolution is a co-creative process. As a teacher, I don't over-control a student's advance, nor does he or she over-control my instruction. A sculptor intuitively knows when his sculpture is complete. Think of the martial student as a living sculpture. Sometimes the student senses completion of a stage of his development first. Sometimes I do. There's also that rare occasion of a mutual climax when we simultaneously recognize the color of the moment has changed. When the energy of one process is discharged, the new one begins, and both student and teacher take a new position in the universal scheme. This is one of the reasons behind the change in colored belts in the martial arts. In a physical struggle, we say when the hand, determination, is emptied, the fight is over. When you've got your groceries in your arms, you don't hang around the marketplace. It's time to head home.
What about students who just want basic self-defense or sport training?
I apply my father's advice. Never force anything. There's a great deal of practical information available in all forms of martial arts training, which I can equally enjoy with students. Although there's a great value to be had through mindful spiritual practice, but a student who's uninterested or who resists the notion, it's not obligated. Natural life cycles continually take us to the doorstep of our inner world as an unconditional offering. It's your choice to enter or not. I respect everyone's process.
Do some students find spiritual training too ambiguous?
There's a general misconception about the martial art that its spiritual component is a mysterious or mystical nature. I try to avoid obtuse, abstract, or overly heady definitions for living a mindful and meaningful life. I want practical tools, something I can see, touch, and feel. I'd rather wash my hands with soap and hot water than take a lecture on hygiene or a visualization of clean hands. Likewise, I want something practical to cleanse my inner world. Meditation allows me to quietly wash myself of unwanted frequencies, negative thoughts, and to connect the loose ends of self. Afterwards, I feel much lighter and clearer. As a martial artist, I choose and teach action over rumination. Our most personal journey is not supposed to be understood by everyone. We share that part of the path only with our most intimate loved ones and fellow disciples, those who can really appreciate the nuances of our travels.
How does ki or chi work factor into your kempo training?
Many of the great martial systems of the world complement their physical or biomechanical training with what we call soft principles. Soft principles describe working with the human subtle energy body, or what the Japanese call ki. Okinawan karate masters called their internal training principles kiko, or spirit breath. Kiko refers to the dynamic synergy between mind, body, breath, and spirit moving in nature's vitalizing rhythm. From the practical standpoint, Kiko training adds instantaneous strength to any physical technique. From a spiritual standpoint, Ki is our direct interface with the vibratory world of energy, similar to the way our breath is an interface between our physical and psychic world.
Have you seen much change in the martial arts since you began training in 1968?
The social focus seems to continually alter the purpose, the value, the perceptions, the methods, and even the relationships we have toward martial arts. In some cases, we've greatly advanced our training concepts. In others, we've regressed. We have more sophisticated training devices today, yet oddly less sensitivity to our bodies. We possess a greater scientific understanding of the human body, but a diminished knowledge of its spiritual anatomy. Society has greater access to life-enhancing information, but we still choose to self-indulge, choosing entertainment over evolution. For example, the broad media exposure to mixed martial arts is changing the face of martial arts in the United States. It satisfies a great thirst for the martial arts, but perhaps only for what the untrained viewers actually see, a sometimes bloody combat. The more intrinsic values of the traditional systems get masked behind MMA's sensationalism. Although the basic truths about martial training have changed very little, modern culture constantly reassesses its merits and so reassembles its components from one decade to the next, highlighting now the ancient traditional path or now the more popularized, eye-catching mixed martial arts.
What is your attitude about physical training?
Whatever activity you undertake, it's important to have a clear objective. Do you want to learn a new form, master a kick, earn a belt, or become a life student? We shouldn't stress our body systems or focus exclusively on one facet of life, but rather strive to integrate all of our biological functions with one another. For example, in our training, we want the musculoskeletal system woven into the respiratory, and our breath connected to our intention, and so on. Overconditioning in any one area will almost always deplete or diminish another. This is why some people's martial skills and their lives never wholly improve. We must also ask some fundamental questions. What does it mean to be human? How does martial practice help us to elevate our humanness? It would be self-limiting to spend all day in the dojo and let our work and family relationships falter. This represents lopsided or one-dimensional training, which can lead to one-dimensional viewpoints and perpetuate a self-restricting life cycle. Who cares how many front kicks you can do if your loved ones are starving for attention? Kempo study is a three-dimensional undertaking. We have this amazing ability to elevate our lives through conscious practice. Our mind is very adaptable, but it needs freedom to see the whole range of experiences in front of it. Only then can we intelligently select and implement a balanced set of conditioning exercises.
Could you explain the spiritual concept of the dojo?
All the substrates of our personal reality, our social and economic systems, our relationships, our technologies, our martial disciplines, reflect the best and worst qualities of our personal makeup and desires. In this sense, life is like a mirror. It offers us either muddy or crystal reflections. The right dojo or training hall will offer us a clear and candid image of our life process. When the dojo allows us to clearly see the reflection of our inner world, it's considered a sacred or right, R-I-T-E, place. The word dojo translates as way place. The term implies a meditative sanctuary set aside from daily life to develop a conscious spiritual life, or way, and then to weave that emergent inner world awareness into the everyday outer world. When you take care of your business in the bathroom, you move out into other rooms. You don't spend all day in the bathroom. In the same way, spiritual life is not supposed to be isolated from our everyday life. We should take our dojo lessons out into the larger world to fully extend their dimension and meaning. Spiritual awareness is complementary to material life in the same way that the inside lining of a coat adds more warmth or substance to the outer layer. Spiritual life is referred to as inner because it's less visible. For some, though, spiritual life is an unconscious life, where inner can imply hidden, which can also mean lost. The coat analogy describes the polarity between the egocentric and the egoless life. The dojo's importance is not so much in its physical makeup of tatami, wood, or padded flooring, mirrors, or kicking bags, but rather as a place in the mind where you come to recognize your role as a life student, or doka. The dojo's outer decor reflects your own inner sanctuary. So the inner and outer dojo become a place for the ritual unfolding of the spiritual or the sacred. Who we are unequivocally spills outside of us and shapes our environment. The way place is also where we come to study our way, our path, as it relates to our own unrealized potential. Practicing the way leads to great inner rewards and a deep sense of community and purpose. I was denied access to many powers in my youth because the gates to those powers were shut. I had little awareness of my own subterranean currents until I began the discipline of kempo. Personal growth has its own special timing and rhythm, likened to our seasonal cycles. You can't have summer without going through spring. In the dojo, we get to look candidly at our personal life cycles with the hope that we can attune them. The moment you enter the dojo, we reduce the interfering distractions of work and social obligations by asking them to politely remain outside. We slough them off with a bow. Everyone thinks of the dojo bow as a greeting, a salutation, but the rei is also a letting go, a saying goodbye to prior obligations and old patterns, even if only for an hour or so during training. Everyone has a dojo. It's just that some people have locked its value out of their everyday mind. Many societies choose to carve out a place for personal or spiritual growth to balance the material side of life. Any place that supports community with your deeper nature, a church, a garden, a time alone in your chair, at your desk, or the dojo environment, places you on the way.
Some suggest that spirituality or real growth in martial arts often begins after the black belt.
The Japanese made an important distinction between two skill groups: black belt holders below the Shodan grade, the first black belt ranking, and those holding rank above it. This grading system is referred to as the Kyudansha Yudansha ranking system, formalized in Japan in the 1880s. Shodan translates as conception, new beginning, or first step. Now you may ask, why should there be the recognition of a new beginning at this juncture? Well, I can't answer for other teachers, but I can give you an analogy that may help explain the general distinctions between the Dan, the black belt grades. For infants, life outside of the womb is a radically different growth stage from life inside the womb. In either case, a developing being experiences existence. Newborn babies could be called Shodans because of their autonomy that occurs at birth. The baby is still very much dependent upon its caregivers, but its umbilicus has been cut. No one is going to reattach it. The newborn gains a newfound freedom along with its severance. The infant can't return to the womb, and this is true of the martial Shodan. At Shodan, the teacher ritually cuts the student's umbilicus, metaphorically speaking, after literally pulling that student for years through the conceptual birth canal of understanding about his or her martial art. Martial rebirth also has its gestation period. Just as the infant will go on a decades-long destiny, passing through various rites of passage like puberty, driving, dating, voting, military service, college, career, marriage, children, home ownership, so the awakened student will discover similar rites of passage and milestones of martial experience. Dan grades mark these passings. Each headmaster determines where to place these markers and what experiences and skills his student must have in order to meet them. Then he waits, witnesses, and affirms their crossing. Of course, there's so much subjectivity in the ranking structure of most martial systems that it's difficult to give a precise meaning that would define each organization's standards. There's also a presupposition that teachers possess a student body mature or skilled enough to assume these high ranks. It takes years to cultivate a skilled senior line. The author Patrick McCarthy discusses the issue of rank in his book, Ancient Okinawan Martial Arts. He states the ranking system was and still is within the Butokukai the evolution of an individual's progress towards the attainment of human perfection through the practice of fighting traditions. This evolution is not based solely upon physical prowess, but rather encompasses the individual's overall physical, moral, and spiritual development. Budo's goal of cultivating our world within in an effort to balance the world without. Hence, promotions were and still are awarded based on this standard. When it comes to personal evolution, where one places the markers for ranking is secondary to the fact that a distance is covered.
Thank you for listening.